Hi, I'm Tony Russo, and this is In Case You Missed It from Kates-Boylston for the week ending Friday, May 17th, 2024. Former Simcoe, Ontario funeral director Paul Taylor, who had his license revoked in 2021, apologized to the court and the people from whom he took more than $386,000 in pre-need funding. Taylor, who received his sentence May 9th, was turned in by his son, who noticed discrepancies in the books. Taylor is described as nearly 70, and he once owned Baldcock Funeral Homes Incorporated and South Coast Funeral and Cremation Alternatives in Simcoe. In one victim impact statement, a woman said Taylor took funds from her husband just months before his arrest, knowing his scheme was about to collapse. Taylor pleaded guilty to fraud last November. The investigation revealed that Taylor perpetrated the fraud over about 10 years. He will have to pay the money back $1,000 at a time over the next 32 years and suffer 18 months of house arrest. He can still go to work and leave for emergencies and church, and he has Saturday afternoons off. He's just not allowed to handle other people's money. The $386,000 is money owed to the state, which has made all of the families that he stole from whole already. Back in March, a Centralia, Illinois funeral director was accused of allowing filthy conditions in his embalming room. Hugh Moran was at the center of an inspection scandal wherein state officials took more than 10 weeks to respond to a complaint about the facility. Speaking with NPR just before everything spiraled out of control, Moran suggested that the rumors of a filthy, poorly kept embalming room were spread by soured business deals. "Last year we were busy. A lot of things got out of hand for me. That's my fault," Moran said. "It needs to be cleaned up, but I am the only one here." Less than a week later, Moran agreed to surrender his license and sell his funeral home. This week, as the cleaning crews attack the filth, the funeral home is once again in the news as legs from the 1960s were found in one of the rooms. The speculation is that they were embalmed and stored for people who elected not to be buried at that funeral home sometime in the distant past. This is a story that is really salient because it comes out of Illinois, and it's interesting because in the May 23rd edition of FSI, we have pre-need stories and succession stories that coincide. Increasingly, we're seeing stories about longtime funeral home owners who ran up against the end of the business that they knew was coming but had never planned for. From here on the outside, it looks like the best case scenario for not having a succession plan is that your retirement is a little less pleasant than you would like. The worst case scenario is you're a scandal and you undo decades of hard work with a little bit of short-sightedness. The Maine Board of Funeral Services met Tuesday, May 14th, to address complaints against Harold Chip Lamson, who owns 2 funeral homes in Lincoln and Millinocket. He's under investigation for theft. The complaints involve more than 60 violations related to issues with mortuary trusts, deficiencies in funeral services, and lack of communication with families. Lamson, with his attorney, and the Maine Assistant Attorney General, which represented the board staff, entered into a consent agreement admitting to the allegations. Under the agreement, Lamson will surrender his license within 120 days to manage the business transactions and client obligations. He must also cooperate with any mortuary trust audits and submit weekly reports to the board. His license will be revoked for 5 years with a possibility of reapplying in 3 years with board approval. After discussions, the board unanimously accepted the consent agreement. That is the third story this week about people who got too far ahead of themselves. Kristin Tips has been appointed chair of the Texas Funeral Service Commission, which licenses funeral directors and embalmers and sets practice standards and regulates funeral homes and funeral service practices in the state. Tips brings a robust background to her new role. She is the president and a funeral director at Mission Park Funeral Chapels, Cemeteries, and Crematories in San Antonio. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Management and an Associate of Applied Science in Mortuary Science. Additionally, she is a member of various service organizations. Governor Greg Abbott's appointment of Tips reflects his confidence in her experience and qualifications to oversee licensing and regulations in the funeral industry. That will do it for this week. Thank you so much for subscribing. If you are not a subscriber, we would love it if you do subscribe. Just click the button on the thing that you're listening to this to or watching it on and hit subscribe. That way you will get updates immediately. This has been a Kates-Boylston production. It was written and edited by me, Tony Russo, and we will check in with you next time.